Happy Holy Hump Day on this June 1st, everyone. I'm Pastor Robert. Welcome to this midweek time where I can share some spiritual thoughts and reflections with you. This Friday and Saturday will be our West Ohio Annual Conference, and the West Ohio Annual Conference consists of 1,000 United Methodist churches, of which we are part, and usually we would meet up at Lakeside, Ohio. They're at Hoover Auditorium. It's this massive auditorium that can seat up to 3,000 people. And the West Ohio Conference includes clergy and lay representatives of the churches where we meet to discuss and vote on various policies and legislation and the budget for the conference for the coming year. We also celebrate in an ordination service of those new pastors coming into the conference. We recognize those clergy who are retiring. We also have a very important service remembering those clergy who've passed away over the last year. And we also have keynote addresses and wonderful worship services. We are led by our bishop, Bishop Gregory Palmer, who presides over our West Ohio Annual Conference. And usually it's like 3 or 4 days that we meet up at Lakeside, Ohio. But for the last few years over the pandemic, we have not been able to meet in person. Instead, we have been doing this virtually online, and we're going to do that again this year, this Friday and Saturday. So you won't see much of me this Friday, Saturday. There'll be all-day meetings through the annual conference. And so I just wanted to share a little bit about this year's annual conference, West Ohio Annual Conference. It will be particularly challenging, I believe, even though we're still going to do all of the things that I have mentioned. And if you watch my Holy Hump Day video about a month ago, I talked about the future of the United Methodist Church as a denomination. And so what's going to happen is we're going to probably be focusing on where we move forward as a denomination. Now, we are only one annual conference of like 68, I believe there are annual conferences, not to mention conferences throughout the world. And so the General Conference, which is the top conference for the entire denomination, meets every 4 years. We were supposed to have that General Conference here in Minneapolis, Minnesota, the end of August, early September, but because of the pandemic, that is going to be delayed again, and they're going to just delay it until 2024, 2 years from now, when we would normally be having the next General Conference. So that was when we were supposed to, as a denomination, consider a legislation called the Protocol, and the Protocol was where we were going to decide on having an easier way for churches that wanted to leave the denomination over LGBTQ issues, more specifically, churches and clergy that want to have a more conservative, restrictive stance regarding LGBTQ issues. For example, the ordination of those who are LGBTQ or performing weddings as pastors for those that are same gender. That General Conference was supposed to make it easier for churches and clergy who would desire to leave the United Methodist Church to do so, and those who would remain in the United Methodist Church would remove that restrictive language and allow for same-sex weddings in churches, allow for the ordination of clergy who are LGBTQ. So that's what's going on at the larger level. But then at these annual conferences, like our West Ohio Conference coming up this weekend, because the General Conference is delayed another 2 years, there are a lot of more conservative churches, more conservative clergy who would want to leave before we have that legislation at General Conference. And so all these annual conferences are trying to decide how they might respond to these churches and clergy that would want to leave. And we don't know how many clergy or churches might want to leave, but there is a new denomination known as the Global Methodist denomination that was launched on May 1st of this year. And that is most likely the denomination where these more conservative churches and clergy would end up joining, transferring from the United Methodist Church. And like I said in the Holy Hump Day video a month ago, what makes this complicated is that all of the assets and the property, the buildings of the United Methodist Church, of any local United Methodist Church, belongs to the conference of which they are part. So you can't just say, hey, I'm not going to be a clergy in the United Methodist Church anymore, or our church isn't going to be part of the United Methodist Church anymore, because all of that property belongs to the conference. So right now they're talking about what would be a fair and equitable settlement for those churches and clergy that would want to leave. And so that's what we're kind of facing as we go into this West Ohio conference this weekend. And so it'll be interesting to see how all of that works out. And so again, the big question is how many churches might leave, how many clergy and churches might leave. Now, for Athens First United Methodist Church, which I did share a month ago in that Holy Hump Day video talking about this issue, we are very focused here to continue to stay in the United Methodist Church, looking for that day when the restrictive language regarding LGBTQ will be removed, allowing churches to have same-sex weddings, allowing our conference to ordain pastors who are LGBTQ. So we as a church don't really need to focus too much on this, because for all intents and purposes, we are going to remain in the United Methodist Church. Our leadership board, myself as your pastor, we're very committed to being the most inclusive, welcoming, affirming, diverse church we can possibly be. So, but I do think that's something that we should continue to pray about. Pray for our bishop, Bishop Gregory Palmer. Pray for all of the churches, those that are thinking about leaving, but also those that want to stay within the United Methodist Church. And so, on another note related to this upcoming West Ohio Annual Conference, I want to thank you because, once again, we have paid 100% of our conference and district apportionments, which equals to about $45,000 to $50,000 a year.
Yes! Yes! Oh! Unbelievable! Unbelievable! Can't believe it!
That we pay in full because we believe in the connectional church. We believe in supporting the church at large and not just the local church. And so thank you for being 100% supporter of our West Ohio Conference and of the Foothills District, of which we are part here in Southeast Ohio. And so, by the way, this will be my 35th annual conference here in West Ohio. I have only missed one annual conference, and that was in 2012 when my mother passed away that week, and I was there with my family to be with her. So that's the only conference that I missed. And so annual conference is important. It is like a great larger church family reunion, because in the United Methodist Church, we are a connectional body. And so I think that's always important to remember. So I want to invite you to join us for worship this Sunday at 9 or 10:30, or you can watch live stream at 10:30. It's going to be Pentecost Sunday. It's going to be the concluding day of the season of Easter, the great 50 days of Easter. And I encourage you to wear red if you'd like to do that, because red is the symbol. It's a color for the Pentecost Sunday, when we remember how the Holy Spirit came upon the church and empowered the church to be able to live out Jesus' ministry in our community and world. So I'm looking forward to that. The theme for this Sunday will be that we are good news interpreters. And so it'll be a very special Sunday as we celebrate Pentecost. So please join us for worship this Sunday.